welcome back. It feels like we've just thrown a ton of information at you over the past few weeks about business data management, a real mountain of it.
We have.
But the real challenge is figuring out what to actually do with all that. Where do you even start?
Right. You're not just collecting data for the sake of it. It's about using it to make better decisions.
Yeah.
To actually improve your business.
So that's our goal today, to cut through all the noise and give you that sort of cheat sheet to business data, what really matters and why.
Exactly. And you've been looking at a lot. We're talking e-commerce, inventory, the whole world of manufacturing, the people side of things with HR, and even those essential marketing and risk concepts.
It's amazing how data touches every single part of a business. So why don't we rewind back to the beginning? Weeks 5 and 6 focused on e-commerce foundations. And I think what's so fascinating there is that journey. A business might start with a super specific product, like for a really niche group of people, but then maybe they want to grow, reach a much bigger audience. That move from niche to mass market.
It's a classic growth story. And at the heart of measuring all that activity is gross merchandise value, or GMV.
GMV, right. So if I'm understanding this correctly, that basically tells you the total value of everything sold during, say, a month or a year.
You got it. It's a top-level view of your sales volume, like how much money is flowing through your platform.
Okay. But does that tell the whole story? What about profit?
That's the catch. GMV doesn't factor in costs or profit margins. So you could have a really high GMV, but still be losing money if your costs are out of control.
So a big number doesn't always mean success.
Right. It's a piece of the puzzle, but you got to look deeper.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, thinking about that initial focus, the material talked about the difference between a niche market and a mass market.
Yeah.
And it seems like a niche market is all about serving a very specific group of people with unique needs.
Think of it like this. They have very particular interests, and they're not easily swayed by, like, mainstream trends.
I get it. So, like, maybe people who are obsessed with vintage board games, that's their niche, their passion.
Perfect example. A mass market, on the other hand, is all about products or services that appeal to a really broad audience. You know, your everyday essentials that pretty much everyone needs.
Right, makes sense. And to illustrate this whole niche market thing, we actually encountered these really interesting user profiles.
Yeah, those were insightful, weren't they?
It was. We had Rajesh Sharma, the tech enthusiast.
Right.
Aishwarya Singh, who is all about fashion.
The influencer.
Ananya Verma, the business professional. Arjun Patel, the music lover. And Mohan Gupta, the adventure seeker.
Each one representing a different slice of the market.
And it really struck me how different their worlds are. Like, Rajesh is probably scouring the internet for the newest gadgets.
Oh, clearly.
While Aishwarya is, focused on the latest trends and styles. So how does a business actually use this knowledge about these different individuals? Like, what's the practical application?
It's all about tailoring your approach. So if you know Rajesh is a tech junkie, you can target your marketing messages, recommend products that align with his interests. And for Aishwarya, understanding her influence in the fashion world, you could leverage that, maybe collaborate with her or target her followers with relevant products.
It's like speaking their language.
Exactly. You're making your offerings resonate with them on a personal level.
So you start by serving that niche really well. But how do you then think about expanding beyond that? What triggers that move from niche to mass market?
That's the million-dollar question. A lot of it comes down to identifying that core problem your product solves or the core desire it fulfills. And then asking yourself, does that resonate with a broader audience?
So, like, if you have a niche product focused on, say, organic pet food, could you appeal to a wider market by emphasizing the health benefit?
Exactly. You're finding that universal appeal. You might tweak the product a bit or adjust your marketing message, but the underlying need is still there.
Okay. Makes sense. Now, as you start offering more products, maybe different sizes, colors, features, you quickly realize you need a way to keep track of everything. And that's where SICKIs come in. Stock keeping units.
It's a foundational element. Without it, you drown in a sea of products.
So is it as simple as, like, each product variation gets its own unique code?
Pretty much. Think of it as a fingerprint for every single product. A red t-shirt in size medium has a different SKU than a blue one in size large.
Okay.
And this level of detail is crucial. It's how you manage your inventory, ensure you're shipping the right things, and analyze your sales data. Without SKUs, things can get really messy really fast.
It's like the building blocks of your product catalog.
Exactly.
Now, which leads us right into inventory management. And the material highlighted these 3 core goals. You want to maximize profit.
Of course, that's the ultimate aim, right?
Minimize held inventory.
You don't want your cash tied up in products just sitting there.
And keep customers happy.
No one likes a stock out.
No, definitely not. But it seems like a constant balancing act.
It is. It's about finding that sweet spot. Having enough product to meet demand, but not so much that it's just sitting there costing you money. And of course, avoiding those dreaded stockouts that leave customers empty-handed.
Right. And there were a bunch of different approaches mentioned in the material.
Yeah, there are quite a few.
Parse stock, EOQ, and MOQ, just in time. We also had metrics like stockout rate and days of inventory, and then those accounting methods, LIFO and FIFO. It's a lot to keep straight.
It can be, but at their core, they're all trying to address those same inventory challenges we talked about.
So maybe just give us the high-level idea behind each one. Like, what's the gist of parse stock?
Parse stock is all about setting that minimum level you want to have on hand for each product. And when your inventory dips below that, you reorder to replenish it.
Okay, so it's like a safety net.
Exactly. It ensures you got enough to meet typical demand.
And then what was EOQ again?
EOQ stands for Economic Order Quantity. It's a fancy way of saying, what's the ideal order size to minimize my overall inventory costs?
So you're factoring in things like ordering costs, holding costs.
Right. You're trying to find that sweet spot between ordering too much and incurring those holding costs and ordering too little and having to constantly reorder.
And MOQ is often tied to that, right? Minimum order quantity.
Yeah, that's the smallest amount a supplier will let you order at a time. So it can influence your EOQ calculations.
Got it. And then there's just in time. That sounds intense.
Just in time, or JIT, is all about having a super lean inventory. You're basically getting your supplies right as you need them.
So minimal storage costs, but probably a lot of coordination headaches.
Definitely requires tight relationships with your suppliers.
Right. And then we had those metrics. What is stockout rate measuring again?
That tells you how often you're running out of a product when a customer tries to buy it. Obviously, you want that number to be as low as possible.
Makes sense. And days of inventory.
That gives you an idea of how long, on average, your inventory sits around before it's sold. It helps you understand how efficiently you're moving your products.
Got it. And then LIFO and FIFO, those are the accounting methods, right?
Yeah. They determine which inventory items are assumed to be sold first, and that can impact your reported costs and profits.
Okay, so a lot of different tools in the inventory management toolbox.
There are. And the best approach really depends on your specific business, your products, your market.
No one-size-fits-all solution. Now, week 7 and 8 took us into the world of manufacturing and operations, and we got a real close-up look with the ACE Gears case study.
Manufacturing adds a whole other layer of complexity. You're dealing with production processes, machinery, and efficiency becomes paramount.
Yeah, there's a different beast altogether. And the material mentioned these ERP systems, enterprise resource planning.
ERPs are essentially the brain of a modern manufacturing operation. They connect all the different departments and functions, from finance to production to sales.
So everyone's working from the same data, the same system.
Exactly. It streamlines communication and gives you a holistic view of what's happening across the business.
And to understand the manufacturing process itself, we learned about the product structure or the bill of materials.
It's like a recipe for building a product. A detailed breakdown of every single component, material, subassembly needed to create the finished product.
So for ACE Gears, it would tell you all the parts that go into making one of their gears.
And not just the parts, but the quantities needed. You'd have your sales forecasts feeding in to determine how many gears you need to make.
Right.
You'd have data on the different types of gears and planks required. And then, of course, all the associated costs for each component. It's the foundation for planning your production and controlling your costs.
It's like the blueprint for the whole manufacturing process.
That's a great way to put it.
And then we encountered this metric called Overall Equipment Effectiveness, or OEE.
OEE is a powerful metric. It's not just about whether a machine is running or not. It tells you how effectively it's running.
And the ACE Gears example really broke it down. We had data on shift length, break times, downtime, ideal cycle time, total count, and reject count.
Each piece of data tells a story. Available time, which is your shift length minus breaks, tells you your total production window. Downtime is any period when the equipment's not running but should be. Ideal cycle time is how fast you could theoretically produce one unit.
Okay.
Total count is how many units you actually produced. And reject count tells you how many didn't meet quality standards.
So if I'm understanding this correctly, by looking at those individual numbers, you can figure out what's slowing you down.
Precisely. Is it equipment breaking down too often? Are you producing too many faulty parts? Is the machine just running slower than it should?
And then you can focus your efforts on fixing those bottlenecks.
Right. OEE gives you a framework for identifying your biggest opportunities for improvement.
And the material also talked about analyzing scatter plots and looking for outliers.
That's a visual way to spot any unusual patterns in your data. It might point to quality issues or processes that need tweaking.
Like those red flags that something's not quite right.
Exactly.
And I can see how all this connects back to what we were talking about with inventory and purchasing.
It's all interconnected.
If your equipment isn't running smoothly, that's going to affect your production targets, which in turn messes with your inventory and your purchasing needs.
Absolutely. Efficient manufacturing relies on a smooth flow of materials. You don't want production to grind to a halt because you're waiting for a key part.
Right. Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears to week 9, where we focus on the people side of business, human resources.
The human element, just as important as the data and machines.
Absolutely. And the material walked us through those different stages of recruitment, from realizing you need to hire someone to actually bringing them on board.
And a crucial step before you even start looking for candidates is manpower planning.
What is that exactly?
It's basically forecasting your future staffing needs, looking at your strategic goals, your projected growth, and figuring out what kind of roles and how many people you'll need to achieve those goals.
So it's about being proactive rather than scrambling to fill positions at the last minute.
Exactly. You're anticipating your needs and making sure you have the right people with the right skills at the right time.
And the material really emphasized the importance of getting this right. Finding the right people is critical for a business to succeed. It's not just about filling a seat. It's about finding that perfect match.
It's about specialization and skill matching.
And the material also talked about employee feedback.
Yeah, you can't underestimate that.
It makes sense. You need to get feedback from your existing employees to understand if your recruitment process is actually working. Are you attracting the right kind of talent? Do people feel like they're a good fit for the company culture?
Their insights are invaluable. They know the demands of the roles and the dynamics of the team better than anyone.
Right. Now, the material also touched on some of the challenges businesses face when it comes to recruitment.
It's not always smooth sailing.
It mentioned career aspirations and mobility.
That's a big one.
So it's like people want to see a path for growth.
Absolutely. They want to know that there are opportunities for advancement, chances to take on new challenges. If they don't see that, they're more likely to leave.
It's about feeling valued and having that sense of purpose.
Right. And that ties into those concepts for managing your existing talent, like attrition rate.
Attrition rate. So that's understanding why people are leaving and how quickly.
Exactly. And then you have strategies like internal sourcing, where you look for candidates within your own company first.
Which makes sense. You already know their skills and how they work.
Plus, it can boost morale.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's promotion, which is the traditional upward movement, and lateral movement, which is about giving people opportunities to move to different roles at the same level.
So maybe they want to broaden their experience or learn new skills.
And that helps build a well-rounded workforce.
Yeah.
And then you have the bench system.
The bench system, what was that again?
That's about identifying high-potential employees and preparing them for future leadership roles. It's about investing in your people and building a pipeline of future leaders.
Okay, so it's like grooming them for bigger things down the line.
Exactly. And all of this starts with having really clear job descriptions.
Yeah, if you can't even articulate what the job entails, how can you expect to attract the right people?
It's the foundation for attracting the right talent.
And then we had those sourcing channels, which are basically all the different places you might look for candidates.
Right. And then channel analysis is about figuring out which channels are actually giving you the best results.
Like, is it LinkedIn, job boards, employee referrals?
You want to focus your efforts where they're most effective.
Makes sense. And then finally, we have onboarding, that critical step after you've hired someone.
It's often overlooked, but it can make or break a new hire's experience.
So it's about making them feel welcome, helping them get settled in, making sure they understand their role and responsibilities.
And integrating them into the team. A good onboarding experience can make a huge difference in how quickly they become productive members of the team.
Okay, makes sense. Now finally, we move on to weeks 10 and 11, which covered marketing and risk. And we started with A/B testing.
A/B testing is all about using data to make smarter marketing decisions.
So instead of just guessing what might work, you actually test it out.
Exactly. You create two different versions of your marketing material, whether it's a website headline, an email subject line, an ad, and you see which one performs better based on real data.
So it's like an experiment.
It is. And the material laid out a pretty clear four-step process. You start with a hypothesis, your educated guess about what might work better. Then you run your test for a specific period. You analyze the results to see which version actually performed better. And then you implement the winner.
So it's like a continuous cycle of testing and improving.
Exactly. It's iterative. You learn from each test and use those insights to inform your next hypothesis.
And over time, that can lead to some pretty significant improvements in your marketing.
Absolutely. You're constantly optimizing and refining your approach based on real data.
Now, the material also touched on nudge theory, and it even included a link to a blog post with some visual examples.
Nudge theory is fascinating. It's about subtly influencing people's choices without taking away their freedom to choose.
So how does that actually work in a business context?
Think about it like this. You're designing the choice environment in a way that makes it easier or more appealing for people to make a particular decision. Like maybe you make the default option the one you prefer, or you frame information in a certain way.
So it's not about forcing people to do something, it's about gently guiding them towards a particular choice.
Exactly. And these small nudges can have a surprisingly big impact on behavior.
It's like you're subtly shaping the decision-making process.
Right.
Okay. And the final area we explored was credit risks associated with lending money.
This is crucial for any business that extends credit to its customers.
Because you need to make sure you're going to get paid back.
Exactly. And the material highlighted these key terms. Compliance.
Compliance. So that's about making sure you're following all the rules and regulations related to lending.
Right. You have to stay on the right side of the law.
And then there's eligibility.
That's the process of determining whether a customer is likely to repay the credit. Can they actually afford it?
So you're assessing their financial situation.
And then you have fraud risk.
Fraud risk. So that's about making sure you're not being tricked by someone trying to get credit they have no intention of repaying.
You're looking for red flags, verifying information, and then there are system issues.
Which could be anything from technical glitches to security breaches.
Anything that disrupts your credit application or repayment process.
So it's about being aware of all these potential pitfalls and having strategies to mitigate them.
Absolutely. Managing credit risk effectively is essential for protecting your business's financial health.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. E-commerce, inventory, manufacturing, HR, marketing, and risk. It's amazing how data is woven through every single aspect of a business.
It's the common thread. And the key takeaway is that you're not just collecting data for the sake of it. It's about using that data to make better decisions, to improve your operations, to ultimately drive success.
And we've tried to give you those practical insights.
Moving beyond just defining terms, looking at how these concepts actually work in the real world.
So I'm curious, as you're listening to all this, what really stands out for you? What feels most relevant to your own situation?
Yeah, what sparked your interest? Was it the power of really understanding your niche customer? The importance of OEE in optimizing your production? Or maybe the potential of using A/B testing or nudges in your marketing?
What are you going to take away from this and apply in your own work?
And remember, this is just the beginning of your journey. The world of data is constantly evolving. There's always more to learn, new tools to explore. But by embracing this data-driven mindset, you're setting yourself up for success in today's business landscape.
So keep learning, keep experimenting, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible with data.
Absolutely. That's the key.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.
See you then.